It's sunrise in Red Rock Canyon, and now we're in the Willow Springs area. And what we're going to do is revisit what I call the western approach to La Madre Mountain. Well, here's White Rock Mountain. White Rock Mountain has a great loop trail, 5-mile loop trail around the mountain. What we're going to do is we're going to start on that loop trail. We're going to go behind the mountain, head up on a split-off trail that goes to La Madre Springs. And so we're going to go through La Madre Springs area, and above it, there's a miner's cabin. We're going to reach the miner's cabin, and then at that point, there is an unmarked pathway that leads up to the summit of the Keystone Thrust. So we're going to summit the Keystone Thrust, take a right or east, and head toward La Madre Mountain. We're going to see how far we get. I've made it almost to El Bastardo. And maybe today we'll get to El Bastardo. And the goal is, if I can get to El Bastardo and find a way down toward Kyle Canyon, then I can turn this into the Kyle Canyon Grand Crossing, which begins at the intersection of Kyle Canyon Road and Harris Springs Road, and it heads up to Burnt Peak, across the Keystone Thrust, and would then head down in this direction right to this location. I've made it up to Burnt Peak before. I just haven't made it around El Bastardo yet. So this could be the missing link today. One of the values of this is that you go through a whole lot of different climate zones. As we rise up today, you're going to see a real variety. And you're going to also see spectacular views from the Keystone Thrust. We'll see all of Red Rock Canyon stretching below us, and we'll also see Kyle Canyon on the other side. So we're in for an amazing experience today. Now I just want to get a few shots here of these new interpretive displays. I haven't seen these before. It's been a few years since I've been in this area. There's been a lot of improvements, and you can pause the video and read the interpretive displays. I just wanted to get these on the video so you can do that. We start out in Red Rock Canyon, and then we rise up to the La Madre Mountains wilderness. Now, if you went in this direction, you think these are all Red Rock Canyon. Actually, this is the Rainbow Mountains wilderness. And we'll take a closer look at this area. There's a whole lot going on just in this Willow Springs area, as you can see by taking a look at the interpretive signs here. But we're basically at the juncture of three amazing wilderness areas: Red Rock Canyon National Conservation Area, La Madre Mountains Wilderness, and Rainbow Mountain Wilderness. Okay, let's get started. And by the way, Here we are starting up Rocky Gap Road. This leads up to, if you take a left up ahead, you'll head up toward Bridge Mountain and North Peak. If you take a right, you head around the White Rock Mountain and the White Rock Mountain Loop. The reason I'm talking a little funny is it's 45 degrees. I'm used to Las Vegas, 100, 110 degrees. Suddenly we're in the fall, 45 degrees. That's a pretty big spread. And I'm all frozen up. And up ahead, you're looking at the famous Keystone Thrust fault line. And this fault line, I had attempted to ascend over just below the saddle between El Bastardo and Burnt Peak. And I'll return to that and now see if I can navigate those cliffs. But there is an ascent point up ahead, which I'll show you. Just a quick note, if you're planning on navigating Rocky Gap Road in a motor vehicle, you probably want to have four-wheel drive. There are a lot of areas here on this road that, here's a wash that crosses the road. And there are a number of areas like this. This is pretty mild compared to some of the areas up ahead. But yeah, you would not make it in my smart car beast or any lowrider car. You definitely want to have four-wheel drive and very high-centered vehicle here. And Rocky Gap Road actually will take you all the way into Level Canyon. So that's a whole nother experience, and you can see adventures in Level Canyon area on Las Vegas area trails. Take a look at that. But wow, look at this road. Yeah, I've seen four-wheel drive vehicles actually broken down up ahead, higher on Rocky Gap Road. So yeah, it's not the easiest trip to take. And there you're seeing the Keystone Thrust. And that low area up ahead is actually where we're going to summit the Keystone Thrust and then head along toward El Bastardo. And here's again is White Rock Mountain. And you're looking down Rocky Gap Road and into the Rainbow Mountains. So give you an idea where we are here. We're just about at the area where we're going to turn off and head around White Rock Mountain. And here's where you can see the sign for the Rainbow Mountains Wilderness, which is in this direction. And over here, as we begin to head around White Rock Mountain, you see the sign for the La Madre Mountains Wilderness. And then up ahead, the Keystone Thrust on one side, Rainbow Mountains Wilderness, White Rock Mountain, the La Madre Mountains wilderness. Here's a good shot of the backside, north side of White Rock Mountain. Keystone Thrust, El Bastardo up ahead. So you can see we're basically between the Keystone Thrust and White Rock Mountain. And then here we're looking down toward the Rainbow Mountains. So, Rainbow Mountain Wilderness. White Rock Mountain in Red Rock Canyon National Conservation Area. And the Keystone Thrust, La Madre Mountains Wilderness Area. Okay, here's the juncture. Heading this direction, you're heading toward La Madre Spring. You take a right here, and you're heading around the White Rock Mountain Loop. So you see White Rock Mountain, Rainbow Mountains in the first light of the sun. Keystone Thrust. El Bastardo, and heading up toward La Madre Spring. Okay, I just have to catch this. Amazing. Just the look of this area. Here's White Rock Mountain. Perfect lighting conditions. Now you're looking down to the Rainbow Mountains, lit by the rising sun. Keystone Thrust. And then this low point up ahead. In that area, we will summit the Keystone Thrust in just a little bit. And then looking over toward El Bastardo. Back to White Rock Mountain. So beautiful. Okay, continuing to head up the La Madre Springs Trail. But look at this. Totally unmarked trail. Looks very nice. And it must head along the Keystone Thrust, or maybe it reconnects with the White Rock Mountain Loop. We don't know. At some point we'll find out. A little more of the rising sun. Very beautiful moment. Okay, let's continue up toward La Madre Spring. Closing in on our target, Keystone Thrust approach. We'll be going through La Madre Spring area now. We'll get a few shots of the springs. I don't know if they're running at this time. We'll see. It's actually the third weekend in October. So this would be nearly the driest part of the year. If these springs are running, you can pretty much count on them being year-round. Let's get a closer look at the approach to the summit of the Keystone Thrust. So you can see the area we're going to traverse as we ascend to the top of the Keystone Thrust, and then we'll take a right and head toward El Bastardo. So you can see in the bottom of this canyon, the springs are indeed running. See this band of water plants? You can hear the spring. The trail has definitely narrowed, but it's still a decent trail. Should take us all the way up to the miner's cabin. Then it gets really sketchy. And look at the difference between the lush vegetation below in the spring. And you get beyond that, and yeah, you're in the desert. And just this small band of vegetation supported by this year-round flowing water. Quick warning as you are navigating this La Madre Springs trail. The big question is whether to continue on the left or the right. I've already crossed the spring once. And you have little crossings like this that are hidden. You think you go ahead, and no, you don't. You cross, so you're continually weaving around and just picking out where the trail is. Here's a cool little waterfall. As I said, the trail is a bit sketchy here. I don't think many people have been on this trail. But yeah, this is the trail. So I just wanted to give you an idea of what this trail is like. And yeah, you got to pick it out and navigate your way. Sometimes it's on the right side of the spring where we are right now. Sometimes it crosses over in a very obscure point to the left side of the spring. But it does continue on if you can pick the trail out. Here's another little waterfall. There is a bit of class 3 rock climbing here. Not too bad, but you can see, yeah, the trail now continues. It's going to go above that waterfall, cross over the springs, and continue on the other side. So yeah, just to give you an idea, you definitely, by this time, your feet are probably wet, and you will be navigating along the edge of these rocks. So just take proper precautions, and we're continuing on up. Quick note, last time I was here a few years ago, I'm just realizing it was spring. And this is the first time I've done this in the fall. And I gotta say, the brush is much more thick in the fall. And that makes it so you can't always see where you're stepping, and you're continually stepping on grassy, wet area, getting your feet wet, and then traversing slick rocks on the edge of drop-offs. They're not huge drop-offs, but wow, there are no soft landings here. So it would be a bit of a cheese grater. You get banged up, maybe break something. So yeah, it's a little more challenging to do this little route in the fall than in the spring. And then there are a lot of little rabbit trails. It looks like these rocks are indicating, yes, head up in this direction. So far we are on track, but it looks like a whole different world than when we were here in the spring. Yeah, see, here's some very slick rocks if your feet are still wet. Yeah, you're not going to fall to your death, but you could sprain an ankle or destroy a kneecap. Okay, onward. We've just ascended above the Madre Spring area, looking back toward White Rock Mountain. And so you finally end up on the left side of the spring, and you can see the spring continuing up this canyon. And here we're looking at a closer view of the approach to the top of the Keystone Thrust, and there the summit of those hills actually is the summit of that ridge, is the summit of the Keystone Thrust. So continuing on up, good time for the feet to dry out. And our next point of interest is going to be the miner's cabin. I guess not everyone makes it this far. I heard voices behind me back there where it got really sketchy. I don't hear voices anymore. So, yeah, if you can make it past the spring, then you can continue on up, and it's a little easier. Okay, here we are approaching the miner's cabin. When you look at this, just imagine living in this canyon, or in this cabin, and being in such an isolated spot. I hope that this miner found a lot of gold or silver or something to make this worth it. Here's a little place where he created a campfire. And here we are. We're going to enter the miner's cabin. Maybe this is where he kept his mule. Who knows? Front entrance. Or maybe this was all covered at one time, which I think is more likely. And yeah, look at this. Last time I was here, at least these branches created a ceiling. But now, as you can see, a lot of them have fallen. And so all that remains at some point is going to be the walls, the rock walls. And then here are some cans. Who knows what these are for, what use, what was in them. Maybe, I would imagine some of them were water containers. But here you have it. The miner's cabin. A few more cans here. Pork and beans, probably. And actually, emerging from this little isolated cabin, look at the view you'd have. White Rock Mountain below. And you hit this during sunset. Wow. We'll see it on the way down. And by the way, yeah, Bridge Mountain. Now the question is, you're at the miner's cabin. There is absolutely no indication of the route to ascend the Keystone Thrust up there. But I know from picking it out previously that it's somewhere around here. And so all I can say is just continue around behind the miner's cabin and look for something that looks like it's going to ascend upward. And believe me, yes, it's sketchy and there are a lot of little rabbit trails. So like, hey, do you go to the left or the right here? We don't know, but we know we're heading up in that direction. So I'm going to try the right first, and it could be that both lead to where we want to go. We don't know. And there's yet another pathway. So, yeah, I guess what I'm trying to demonstrate here is that it is very, very sketchy. And here we go, descending a little bit and reconnecting with one of the other little rabbit trails. And now it looks like we're on something a little more substantial. And that's the thing. A little beyond the miner's cabin, you'll see where this begins to look like the trail. And yeah, the miner's cabin is just down in that area. You can see the brush that we just ascended through. And actually, see if we zoom in. And yeah, there's the miner's cabin. So you can see we're not too far from it. And you're just navigating around until you eventually hit upon something that is going to take you up to the summit of the Keystone Thrust. And as I said, this is the easiest route up to the top of the Keystone Thrust. So the other ones are even more imposing. Okay, continuing on up, weaving around. But here's some good news. Here's my first cairn. Not mine that I created, but it's the first cairn on this trail. And maybe there will be more as we continue to ascend. And you can see you ascend the rocks up ahead. And give you an idea of where we are. We haven't gone too far past the miner's cabin, but there you can see White Rock Mountain. And as a matter of fact, straight down in the bushes there is indeed the miner's cabin. So a lot of weaving around to get up to this point. A lot of little rabbit trails, but you know, this is where you want to be no matter how you get to this point, and then it's a matter of continuing on up. Yes, this little pathway is pretty much lined with cairns, at least at this point. So that's a hopeful sign. You just continue on up, and I'll let you know if the cairns disappear. If they do, you can bet it's going to be right where things are the most sketchy and you need to see them. We've ascended about 1,200 feet from our starting point, and things are beginning to appear in the distance. And there you see Blue Diamond Mountain. We'll catch a better view of that on the way back. And, oh, what else do we have? Well, let's ascend further and find out. But yeah, you can see the area that we're in. We're about halfway up the Keystone Thrust at this point. And there are a few little cairns that continue. And this is quite a nice little trail as trails go. As I mentioned, it's a bit sketchy. It appears and disappears, but you know you want to continue heading up this ridge, and you know you want to be on the left side of that rocky feature up ahead. And the other part of the big picture here is that the Madre Spring Canyon is below you as you're ascending. It'll be on your right. And so you just want to keep track of these features, because believe me, when you're heading down, it's going to be a whole different world. And the situation is that, yeah, if you get off course and lose this trail, you could end up on the edge of something that's quite a drop off. So anyway, it's really good to keep your bearings as you're heading uphill here. Little plateau here, and the question is, do you ascend these rocks on this side? I think this is just to a higher plateau, so I'm going to guess that you continue straight and see if the trail continues on past here. We'll find out really quick, give you an idea where we are. It's pretty rapid ascent, but we are, after all, ascending the Keystone Thrust cliffs. We just happen to be in a more gradual section here. So, yeah, let's go through here and see if that's a dead end or if it's actually a trail. Well, I'm going to say this is the way to continue up. And we've got that barrier up ahead. We'll just see, hopefully we skirt that on the left side. Okay, here's that little rock face. We need to get over it, and it looks like there's a nice enough class 3 ascent right up this area. And yeah, you probably don't want to try to skirt around the edge. I've done that before, actually, but yeah, it looks like maybe this is the best way up and over. And this is pretty much I think this is the only class 3 section before you get to the summit. So it's not actually too bad. Okay, let's take it. Okay, that wasn't too horribly bad, but as you can see, there's a bit of exposure that you're facing. And we're at the top of this area here, and now continuing to navigate our way up to the summit of the Keystone Thrust. We've topped the Keystone Thrust, and now we're looking at, over there is Harris Mountain on the right, Griffith on the left. Okay, there you see those two. And over here in this direction is Mummy. And there's Angel Peak. And then we're looking down into Kyle Canyon, down in this direction. And I guess I could do a grand crossing over here. And I think that what we're looking at down in this direction, that road just may be part of Harris Mountain Road, Harris Springs Road. Let's take another look. So, if you could descend from here and get over to that road, you'd be over in Kyle Canyon. But the canyons down here are unknown to me. Then we look out over in this direction. We're looking toward El Bastardo. So now you're seeing El Bastardo from the other side when we were ascending Burnt Peak and then headed over to the shoulder, the saddle between Burnt Peak and El Bastardo. We were just on the other side of those rocks. So there is a lot to explore up here, and some ways that one could descend into Kyle Canyon. And actually the descent is much easier because it's much more gradual going down this side. On the other hand, there's a lot of cliff action on the Red Rock side. And here we're looking down on White Rock Mountain. We were down there not too long ago. And then over to the Rainbow Mountains. And that tip of a cliff that you see there is Mount Wilson. And then over here, we can look down to Rocky Gap Road. We were on Rocky Gap Road not long ago. And then from Rocky Gap Road, if you look up to the left and that ridge line that you see there, that is the Rainbow Mountains Upper Crest Ridge Line. That's the northern area, the northern part of that ridge line. So you can see it tracing along there. And there's that high point right in the center. That's North Peak. And then over here, we're looking straight over at Bridge Mountain, that smooth dome. And then in the far distance, that high point is Potosi Mountain. And then panning over in this direction, White Rock Mountain right in the center there below us. And then over in this direction is Blue Diamond Mountain. And then over to the left is the Calico Hills. And then you see a peak over there. That is Turtle Head Peak. And then in the background is the Las Vegas Valley. And you can see a part of the strip right behind Turtle Head Peak. and then back over to El Bastardo and moving toward, this is the Keystone Thrust, the summit of the Keystone Thrust, and you can take this over to Burnt Peak, La Madre Mountain, El Padre Mountain, all of those. So there you have it. Summit of the Keystone Thrust. With views to Kyle Canyon and Red Rock Canyon. What I'm going to do today is head back because I spent a lot of time on the approach to this summit so I could figure out how to get back down. So we'll see how that goes. But I think as soon as I streamline this route, then I'll have time to continue on toward El Bastardo or look for a descent path down into Kyle Canyon. Again, we're looking to complete the Kyle Canyon Grand Crossing, which goes from Harris Springs Road and Kyle Canyon Road up to Burnt Peak, across, and then down into Red Rock Canyon. Okay, from this point, which is the summit of the Keystone Thrust, at least in this part of the Keystone Thrust, we're descending, and if I plan things correctly, there are a series of cairns to lead me off these cliffs. The first one is ahead. And then continuing down, we'll find some others. So here we go. Okay, here's another cairn, and the goal is getting back down to the base of White Rock Mountain. There's White Rock Mountain, and there you can see very faintly, I guess, the La Madre Springs Trail, and it doubles as the trail that circles White Rock Mountain, the White Rock Mountain Loop. And there is our goal. There's the corner of White Rock Mountain, just where we began to circle White Rock Mountain and headed in this direction. And the parking area is just to the left of the base of White Rock Mountain. I remember getting disoriented on this ridge on the way down before, and so what I've done is I've designed it so that from each cairn you can see the next cairn, and that helps you all the way up and all the way down. I designed this also so that you can see the next cairn on the way up and also on the way down, that it's not hidden. And as you can see, the cairns are fairly frequent and obvious. And so just in a short time, we've descended from that high point up there. And continuing down, following the cairns. This is why it took me so long. The cairn trail is pretty much mastered here. You never feel like you've lost your way at all, because you can always see the next cairn. And there you go. Another benefit of this cairn trail is that it is pretty much maybe 95% class 2 all the way. Now, there is one section, that class 3 section that we saw on the way up. No way to avoid that, but just stick to the cairns, and yeah, except for that one section of about, I don't know, 12 feet, it's all class 2. Okay, the cairns led me to the only class 3 section. So we just need to get down this. Class 3 means that you need both your hands and your feet to maintain your position. And except for this one little section, everything's class 2 all the way to the summit of the Keystone Thrust if you follow the cairns. Okay, I'm putting the phone down because I need my hands. Okay, that wasn't too bad. It's actually easier to lower yourself down something like this than it is to raise yourself up. And the cairns stop at this point, but the trail becomes a lot more visible and apparent. So we should have no trouble getting down the rest of the way to the miner's cabin, and then navigating La Madre Springs. There are a few spots there that they're a little dicey with wet feet, but we'll get past that, and then we'll be down on the trail below, and you can see White Rock Mountain and the trail that we're shooting for. And just to give you an idea what else can be seen is straight ahead there, Bridge Mountain. Much better view because the lighting is in a much better situation. And then looking over this way around, well, it's not around White Rock Mountain actually, because the circuit of White Rock Mountain is down in that direction, but this is another mountain, and you can see the Calico Hills. And then you can also see Las Vegas Valley. And as I said, the lighting is much better when the sun's at this angle, more in the afternoon. Closing in now on the miner's cabin. After that, we just have the slick rocks with wet feet of the La Madre Spring area. And there's the miner's cabin. Okay, we're continuing down. Okay, we've made it past La Madre Springs, and here's White Rock Mountain ahead. Much better lighting, so you can really see every detail here. Here in much better lighting than this morning is the Keystone Thrust. There's El Bastardo up there. And then this saddle area is where we summited the Keystone Thrust. We were up in those hills. And then you can see White Rock Mountain. And we're making a beeline back to the Willow Spring area. Another shot in the beautiful sunset, or waning sun. This is, by the way, the point where the White Rock Mountain Loop splits off from this larger La Madre Springs trail. That is just too beautiful. Can you believe just on the other side of White Rock Mountain, we're looking at barren desert. Another shot of the area from another perspective. And we were up on the ridge up there. And yet another perspective, White Rock Mountain in the evening sun. And there's the trail where we turn left, head for the Willow Spring parking area. So you can see the canyon below. Keystone Thrust. Ridge where we were. Let's shoot in on the Keystone Thrust just a second. Here's the ridge where we were standing not long ago. Actually, about 2.5 hours ago. There's a shot of Blue Diamond Mountain. Really good lighting. Okay, final stretch here. Here we go. Down Rocky Gap Road to Willow Spring.